अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोर्श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्ता नमोस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नमो महावदान्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायिने कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरकृषे नमः। पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम्। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, second Canto, 10th chapter, beginning from verse number 7. So in this chapter, the 10 subjects which are described in Bhagavatam, they have been defined. This is a usual custom, at least in Vedic literature, that whenever they describe something, they give a brief explanation of that, and that is called Uddesh. And then a definition is given, which is called Lakshana. So this simply means listing the topics which will be described. So therefore the first verse of this chapter gave the list. Atra sargo visargasya sthanam poshnam bhute manvantara ishanam katha nirodha mukti ashraya. So these are the 10 topics which are described in Bhagavatam, and therefore he lists them. So this is called Uddesh, which means Nam Sankirtan. Nam Sankirtan here does not mean chanting of the holy name, it means listing the names. And then there is Lakshana, which means giving definition. So that's why he said Dasmasya Vishuddhyartham Navanam Hi Lakshanam, that Praniyanti Mahatmana Shrutena Arthena Chani, so that the 9 things are described here to actually explain the 10th topic. And then he started giving the definition of each one. So Lakshana is that which gives the special characteristic of an object. Every object has some general characteristics and some specific characteristics. So Lakshana is the distinguishing feature, because if you have to know an object, then if you give some common characteristic, then you may mistake another object which also has those characteristics for the one which has been defined. So therefore Lakshana must be that which is only in that particular object and not in anyone else. So then there are of course ways to test a Lakshana. So Nyaya philosophy, the Indian logic, deals only with these three things: Uddesh, Lakshan and Pariksha. They give the names, then they give definition, and then they test the definition. So it is very important to test a definition so that you don't mistake one thing for another. Like so many times the questions are asked, but devotee is free from karma, but bhakti makes you free from karma. Or if you chant once the name of God, then you become free from karma or you get liberated. So all these types of questions are asked without knowing what is bhakti, what is devotee, what is chanting of the name. So we have one concept in our head and then we read, but that person who is writing it, he has another concept of the same thing. And then we apply our concept onto somebody else's concept. And then we misunderstand. So therefore it is very important to study the Lakshan. So Nyaya came into existence mainly for this purpose, defining, especially Navya Nyaya, which was very popular in Navdeep when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was there. They spent hours and hours just defining things in such a way that you cannot find a fault in it. So that when somebody will speak something, then it is precisely connected or conveyed, not that other person misunderstands. So when there used to be debates in the olden days, then people will actually catch the other person whether he has made the proper definition or he is mixing it up. So this is how the debates were very complicated and intricate. They may even ask in the debate that you just define this. So like Rupa Goswami makes a definition of bhakti, and that definition is then applied everywhere. Whether it is sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, prema bhakti. So once he makes a definition, there are also other definitions of bhakti, but they may have problems in them. So he makes a very precise definition. Anya vilashita sunyam gyan karma denavadam anukullena krishnanusrilam bhakti rottam. And there is very big commentary on that verse by Jiva Goswami to explain how this definition is free from defects, because there are three types of defects which are possible. One is that your definition is too large, it applies to the object you are defining and also to something else. And one is too narrow, it applies only to one part. Means the definition of bhakti may apply only to one type of bhakti and not the other type. And the other is that the definition does not apply at all to the object you are defining. So all these things are tested. So when many times in the commentaries these things are written, that why this was said or why that is said, to make sure that there is no defect in the definition. So he started defining what is sarga. So bhut matra indriya dhyan janma sarga udaharita. Sarga is manifestation of the material elements, tanmatras, senses, and mahatattva, buddhi, cosmic intelligence, which he also said implies ahankar. So this is called sarga. And then visarga is when Brahma is created. Brahmano Brahmashanya visarga Purusha Smriti. So that is Purush, means created by Purusha, and Purusha here refers to Brahma. Then he defined what is Sthiti, Poshan, Manvantar, Uti, Ishanukatha, and now he is going to define Nirodha, which is the eighth. So he has already define the saying out of 10. So in this verse it says Nirodho asya anushanam atmana sah shaktibhi mukti ritva nitharupam swarupena vyavasthitihi. Nirodha. Nirodha literally means to obstruct something, to stop, to block. So he says that Nirodha asya anushanam. Nirodha is sleeping of the Lord along with his potencies. So this refers to dissolution. The Lord, he concludes the natural creation. That is Nirodha. And Mukti hitva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthiti. Mukti means to become situated in your own swarupa. Swarupena vyavasthiti. By giving up the other form. So that is called liberation. Now one may ask a question that what does it mean to be situated in your own swarupa? Because we are always situated in our own swarupa only. How can you be situated anywhere else? Whatever you are, you are. You cannot be anything else. So that's why when Moses asked God what is his name, he says, I am what I am. Means I am situated in my swarupa. Right? If you are not situated in swarupa, your own swarupa, then you are not what you are. You will be something else. So that's what he says. That liberation means to be situated in your own swarupa and give up the other form. So this implies that at present we are not situated in our own swarupa. And wherever we are situated, that is not our original place. So of course, it is not possible for anyone to be situated anywhere else but in one's own swarupa. But by the power of Maya, as we have already read, that Maya has this question was also asked by Parikshit. And there it was answered that it is only Lord's Maya which makes us feel like that. Sukadeva Goswami has, this was the first thing he said, Atma Maya Rite Rajan Parasya Anubhavatmane Na Ghateta Artha Sambandha Swapna Drashtur Evanjasa. So really speaking, we are not out of our Swarupa. Yet we are not in our Swarupa at present because we are thinking ourselves being situated in something else. And that is the Anya Rupa, which is this body. So really speaking, we are not in the body because we are not in contact with this. As he gave the example, Swapna Drashtur Evanjasa. As when we are dreaming and we are seeing dream objects, and in the dream you may be sitting in a car, but you are not sitting in a car because you are lying on your bed. But in the dream you are. So in the same way now we are really not sitting in this body, but we are, and we feel the hunger. Just as in the dream you move in the car and you feel you are going at this particular speed, when actually you are lying just on your bed. You don't go anywhere. So now also we are not going anywhere. Therefore Krishna says, Achalo ayam sanatana. He says that soul is achala. Achala means to move. And it doesn't move. It's immovable. But we move. We go here, there. And yet it does not move. So how it happens? So this is the Maya. This is what Maya means. Maya is that which makes you feel what you are not. It's not that body is false. It's not that soul is not there. But this relationship between these two things That is the problem. So in Yoga Sutra, it's very interesting that I am studying the commentaries, and in Yoga Sutra, this relationship between soul and body, they call it Purusha and Prakriti. So they have given, Vyasa has written commentary on that, in Vyasa Bhasya. He has given 8 possibilities. That what it really means. What is causing this? Is it the gunas which are causing? Is it that problem in the heart? Is it that some relationship? Or is it that the soul does not know what is happening? Or is it body is causing the problem? So he gives 8 possibilities. And why it is happening? It's very interesting that how many possibilities he makes. So, really speaking, there is no bondage. Krishna says in 11th Canto, Baddha Mukta iti Vyakhya Gunataha Mena Vastuta. Says that soul is bound or liberated. It is not Vastuta, it is not in reality. It is Gunata. It is only through the gunas. Because if it was real, then we will never become liberated. If we are actually outside our Swarupa, we will never come back to the Swarupa. If we actually were in contact with anything material, we will never get rid of it. So it is not part of our Swarupa. It is very amazing thing, most amazing. That's why Krishna says, Ashcharyavat pashyati kasyadena, Ashcharyavat vaditi tathayochanam. Ashcharyavachayana manya shrunoti sutvapi evam na veda kasyat. That it is the great wonder, the soul. Because soul is not doing anything. Purushottam Prabhu wrote me an email this morning because he is talking about this soul, and soul is having intelligence. So he said soul has its sat and chit, and therefore intelligence is there. And then he was saying that in Christianity they had a concept that soul has intelligence, and because of this concept they said that women do not have soul because they were not intelligent, and animals did not have soul because they are not intelligent. This was the logic behind not accepting soul in women and animals. Said only men have intelligence, therefore only men have soul. So there is so much confusion about this. But the fact is that soul is completely free, it has no intelligence. If it had intelligence, it will never fall into Maya. This poor guy has no intelligence. And yet, he can become liberated. So therefore he says, he defines mukti. People talk about liberation. So what is liberation? So perfect definition is given. Muktir hitva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthata. To give up this anya rupa, the other form. Soul has its own swarupa, and body is there, is another form. So to give up that. Now the question is how to give up something which we don't have. So this giving up is also not real. Because accepting is also not real. And if it is not real, then how can you give it up? If we have actually not accepted the body, which is a fact, then how can we give it up? You can only give up something which you have. And something which you don't have, how can you give up that?
Contradictions.
Bolo. So how will you give up if you don't have? Now And yet, you cannot give it up simply by understanding. Because you may say, well, now I have the knowledge, so I can give it up. That is also not possible. In the Yoga Sutra, they are saying, very interesting point they make, that knowledge which you get by hearing is not direct knowledge. Because it's something indirect. You have not experienced it. You hear, like you may hear about some place, you don't have experience of that place. So this is indirect knowledge. In Sanskrit it is called paroksha jnana. Paroksha means not right in front of your eyes. That's something which is in front of your eyes or senses, that is called aparoksha. So he says that paroksha jnana cannot remove aparoksha ajnana. The ignorance which is aparoksha, the ignorance is not indirect. Ignorance is direct. And if you get simply knowledge which is indirect, that is not going to remove that ignorance. So if you want to remove the direct ignorance, you have to have direct knowledge. So that's why you cannot get rid of it simply by knowledge. And that direct knowledge comes only by bhakti. Janete ashu vairagyam jnanam cha rahitakam. It is only bhakti which gives jnana. All the people think that bhakti has nothing to do with jnana, but real jnana comes only through bhakti. So that's why Lord said that jnanam savid jnana sahitam jnanam param guhyam meyad vijnana samandritam. And Krishna also says the same thing, jnana vijnana sahitam vakshyami hit kamyaya. Yes gyattvana punarmoham evam yasyasi pandava. He says, I will give you jnana, means indirect knowledge, and then vijnana, direct knowledge. And once you have that, then he says you will not be bewildered again. Why? Because once you have the direct knowledge, then your direct ignorance is gone, and now it cannot come back. That is not possible. Once there is light, there cannot be darkness. So that's why it is very important. So that's why we have the philosophy that without bhakti it is not possible to get liberation.
So direct knowledge is absolute knowledge. Yes?
Absolute. Realized. Everything else is indirect. That you can have and then you forget. People know, then they forget it. That means it was not direct. Once you will have direct it, then you don't lose it. Anything you forget, that is not direct.
So what is knowledge here? What do you mean by knowledge?
Knowledge.
Knowing what?
Knowledge is a very interesting thing. What is knowledge anyway? Why here? What is knowledge?
And what do you knowing?
What is knowledge?
Knowing.
Define, give a lecture. You're making definitions.
Truth?
No, give definition. Don't give another word.
Oh. A definition.
Anybody knows what is knowledge?
Knowledge is that which is perfect.
No, that is not definition. Here,
That's not.
now there are two things. It is very good that you say it, so I can make something more clear. There is called definition, and there is called the nature of an object. An object has a nature, an object has a definition. Now it is not necessary that the nature is the definition. Sometimes the nature of the object itself is the definition that can also define the object. Because when you say knowledge is perfect, then I can say 0 is also perfect, 1 is perfect, world is perfect, universe is perfect, but universe is not knowledge. So your definition has a defect. So that is called you are defining some, you are actually giving the swarup of knowledge. If you say knowledge is perfect, but you are not giving a definition. How will I recognize what is knowledge? So definition is that by which you can recognize that object, and that have its own swarupa, its nature, its characteristics. You can give that, but they may not be distinguishing features. A distinguishing characteristic is a definition. Not every characteristic is a definition. So object has many characteristics. As you say, knowledge, perfect. So that may be one of its characteristics, but it is not the defining characteristics. Therefore, it is not election.
That by which ignorance is removed.
Yes, that by which ignorance is removed. So, or if you use the word, then by which you know. Knowledge is that by which you know an object. Because knowledge is always that by which you understand an object. So there is an object, and there are you, and there is knowledge. And knowledge is that which makes you understand that object. So object is there, object has a name, and object has knowledge about it. And then knowledge is also in the object, but that is useless for it. So now knowledge is in two places. Knowledge is in the object and knowledge is in you. So only when knowledge is in you, then you can understand the object. But if knowledge is in the object itself and not in you, then you don't understand that.
So knowledge has a lot to do with realization of
Yes, so realization is what is called Vijnana. So you can have theoretical knowledge and realized knowledge. So if you want to get rid of your other Anyatha Rupam, you have to have realized knowledge. Because ignorance is sitting. Again, the idea has to become that where is ignorance? Where does ignorance lie? If ignorance is in the soul, then it can never get out of there. And if ignorance is outside the soul, then it is not in you, so why are you in ignorance? So where is ignorance? Because, as I said, that knowledge exists with a relationship. If you have knowledge, then with what relation you have the knowledge in you? It's like this mobile is on the table. So table is the substratum and mobile is the object. And there is a relationship of contact. It is kept here by relation of contact, and contact is temporary before I can remove it. But this table has a form and it has a color, and that is not by relation of contact, that is the relation of inherence. You cannot take it away from the table without destroying the table. You cannot take out the shape of the table from the table without destroying the table, or color of the table without destroying the table. So that is the relationship. Now this soul has knowledge, it doesn't have knowledge but ignorance. So by which relation it is? Is it by contact or is it by inherence? Now it is not by contact because soul does not contact anything. And if it is by inherence, then it will never come out of it without destroying the soul. So where is the ignorance?
This
so
hidden knowledge.
What do you mean hidden knowledge?
Well, I cannot see by first time.
Where is it hidden?
nobody can understand. Maybe this man to whom is revealed.
Hmm?
Only this man to whom is revealed he can understand.
No, but you said hidden. Hidden means it has to lie somewhere outside your access. When something is hidden means you cannot access it, but it is somewhere existing. So where is it existing? Then you cannot say it is hidden.
So what you're saying, Satyanarayana, is that, let's take the example of a table. A table can have its own tableness, but it has nothing to do with having knowledge, absolute knowledge, or knowledge of table, because there are different types of tables.
Well,
Each
that
one has
is little more complicated. There is a knowledge in table also, but it will be difficult to understand. You have to know a little more concepts of Nyaya. Why there is knowledge there? And from there the knowledge is generated in you when you see it. So that is with a different relationship, Vishya Sambandha. So we can move, let's leave this complications.
Well, if ignorance is absence of knowledge, then it is nowhere.
And where is the absence? Because
I mean,
absence,
if I'm not in this room, and you ask where is my absence,
in the room,
You are not there.
isn't it? If you are in your room, then you are there, your absence is not there. And you are not in this room, so your absence is in this room.
Actually, his absence is all pervading other than...
So in Nyaya, the absence is also an entity. Because you perceive it. You don't see a clock on this table, right? And what you perceive is the absence of clock on the table. So for them, absence, they have 7 entities in Nyaya, and the 7th is abhava, non-existence or absence. So that absence, they say, is existing on the table. They accept it. And it has a relationship with the table, because anything, when there are two things existing in contact, or there has to be a relationship, they say by Swarup Sambandha. So abhava is, absence is existing on the table. They will always, Nyaya will always say that there is an absence of clock on the table. And then as soon as you say that there is an absence on the table, then the question comes that what is the relationship? Because when you say there is a clock on the table, then there are two things. There is a table and there is a clock, and there is a relationship between these two, because one is on top of another. So in the same way, when you say there is an absence on the table of clock, that means absence is also existing. Although it is absence, but it has existence. And if it has existence on the table, then there has to be a relationship. So, now what do you say?
yeah, but ignorance is not a real substantial object.
It is absence. Right? Ignorance is absence. Of course, ignorance is of two things. Ignorance can mean two. It can mean many things, but at least two you can understand. One is that there is no knowledge, and one is that you have wrong knowledge. Because wrong knowledge is also an ignorance. So in either case, when you have wrong knowledge, where does it exist in you? And when you don't have knowledge, then where is the absence?
So what's built into this is that it has to be like an inherent acceptance of the fact that a thing exists, whether the other thing that's related to it is absent or present, right? Or I messed that one up,
Say it again.
but I don't know if I can. have to think about it some more.
Need some knowledge.
So now whatever is happening is all happening outside the soul. All the knowledge which you are acquiring, it is all outside the soul. It is not going inside the soul. It's only in the chitta. That's where it is stored. Because knowledge, there is mind and then there is storage. So whenever you get knowledge about anything, like you see this mobile, so you have direct perception of this mobile, right? So this knowledge of this mobile stays in your mind only for 3 moments. Unless you, of course, you keep on looking at it, then knowledge is being generated in you. But if you look at anything and then turn away from that object, then that knowledge will stay only for 3 moments. In the first moment, the knowledge is generated in you, because you don't have the knowledge of this to begin with. And knowledge here, I am talking about the active knowledge, not what is stored. But to know that you know the mobile. There are 2 types of knowledge. One is you perceive this is a mobile, and then second is that I know that this is a mobile. Means you are aware of it. So the first moment only the knowledge is generated. You see this, but it doesn't stay anymore. Then you are seeing something else, then that is generated. So in our senses, this is what is happening all the time. It's very interesting, this phenomena of knowledge. How all the time knowledge is being generated, newer and newer and newer and newer, and it is replaced all the time. So it is first moment it is created, then it stays for 1 moment, and the third moment it is finished. It's dead. Then it only creates an impression and it goes into your heart.
But if you fix the knowledge in the book and write exactly what this is not exists.
That is book knowledge.
Yeah, but it's knowledge.
Yeah, but it's not in you.
But I can always communicate.
Yeah, of course you can always see this mobile also.
Yeah.
So knowledge is also here in the mobile. But in our mind, I'm talking about the mind, when you perceive anything, then that knowledge stays only 3 moments.
Okay.
That's how. And then it leaves an impression and it dies. So that's how all the knowledge is like that. Everything, you hear a word, it doesn't stay all the time in your mind, because you are hearing another word. So you hear the word, next word. I'm saying you hear the next word. When you hear the D of word, then that U is gone. You hear the word. When you are hearing the last syllable of word, this word, then that U sound and you hear, all that is dead. It's not in your mind anymore. So you go on hearing. So same thing happens by seeing, same thing happens by touch. With sound it is easy to understand, because we hear words, and when we are hearing only 1 syllable at a time. We don't hear the whole sentence at one moment. We hear parts by part by part by part. And when you are hearing the last syllable of the sentence, the first syllable and the next to that and all other syllables, they are finished. They are not in your mind.
They're stored in the heart.
They just leave an impression. Everything leaves an impression. So when we say knowledge, we are talking about this, what is in your mind, because that is knowledge. What is lying inside, that is not called knowledge, that is called samskar. That is an impression. Like he's saying, it is lying in the book. It is lying in the book, but it's not in your mind. So in mind, at one point, there is only one thing. Whether you hear, or you see, or you touch, or you taste, or you smell, and it keeps on changing. So mind is always going from one to another to another to another, non-stop.
Can you say mind is like analogous with now, like with nowness?
Yes.
And that is the knowledge, you said?
That is the knowledge.
And when it goes in the chitta?
That is samskara.
Samskara.
That you can remember that. And when you remember that, then it is knowledge.
Samskara.
So basically, knowledge you can say is of two types. One is called experience and other called remembrance. So when you are experiencing something like you see it or you are hearing, this is direct perception. And if you have heard something or you have seen it and you close your eyes and you remember this from your samskara, that is remembrance. So that is coming from the samskaras. But knowledge is referred only what is active in your mind at a particular point. That is called jnana. Once it is in the heart, that is not knowledge, that is samskar. And that from that you can have memory. When it is memory, then it is knowledge. When you don't remember it, it is not knowledge, it's lying somewhere like a disk. So whatever is on the screen, on the computer, that is knowledge. So you are typing and all the time there is word coming on the screen. So that is knowledge. And then it is getting saved, it goes next page, that is being stored, that is samskara. You can pull that back onto the screen, then it is knowledge again. So knowledge can come either by remembrance from the past experience or having a new experience. These are the two types of knowledge. And these things have nothing to do with soul at all. Soul is not involved in it.
Satyanarayana, many years back, I think, they used to, when one would go to see a movie and they would want people in the audience to buy something like popcorn, the movie would be going on and then there would be this subliminal stimulus which would say popcorn, or you would see like a bag of popcorn and then people would go and get popcorn not knowing that it was a subliminal like stimuli. And if you said, well, why'd you go and get this? And they would say, well, I just had a
Because
taste.
that is creating an impression. Because whatever is outside, it's all going inside us. Now we may not be aware of everything. There's so much stimulus going through our senses. But I'm not aware of everything. So it goes inside and then it can create thoughts, desires.
Samskaras.
Samskara, that what is goes inside, that is a samskara. And samskaras turn into vasanas. And then vasanas give rise to emotions, thoughts, desires. So they throw. And when it comes into the mind, then that is knowledge. Because desire is also a knowledge, type of knowledge. We call it ichcha. It's actually in the mind.
Samskaras don't have anything to do with the soul.
No,
It's samskaras are carried over from lifetime to lifetime.
that is subtle body is there. So it goes with the subtle. When we die, we give up the gross body and we still have the subtle body, which has the samskaras in it, in a very compact form. Like you make this zip file, so they are zipped when you die. So therefore it is not that all the samskaras become manifest in next life. And then when there is complete annihilation of the universe, then also all your samskaras there, but then this is mahajip. Even the zipped files are further zipped. It is made very, very compact. And Brahma has the job to create from that mahajip into jip and then bring it out into samskara and then create the living beings.
And from what you just said, it seems that samskaras are both what we consciously put in and what we would not want to put in, like the background.
And that also goes,
Yeah.
but what we put consciously, that goes deeper.
Okay.
Now all the samskaras go along with the what you call, what they used to call weight. This is in calculus. When you have something as a weight along with it, and I have probability, you know the weight.
I just missed the point. Inattention. So
And just whether it was in calculus or it was in statistics. You know, certain things occur more often, then their presence has more weight.
Ratio, frequency.
And the technical word was weight, but you know, I studied these things long ago. But suppose there is A is there and B is there. Now A plus B create an influence, but it also depend how much weight B has. You remember this? I studied in my 35 years ago. So the samskaras, when they are stored, they are also stored with certain, you may say, priority, importance, value. So just like if you have some very traumatic experience, so it has more value attached to it. There are other samskaras, but this particular samskara has more value, and because it has more value, so it will have more tendency to become activated on the screen, and therefore it may guide your character. Similarly, when you become addicted to something, that means the samskara of that particular action which you have performed many times, because to get addicted you have to repeat that and you have to like it. So then the weight goes along with it, the value, and because of the value it forces you, the desires, thoughts, emotions, they come out because of that.
Would that be something like A is greater than B, but C is greater than A
No,
and B? Nothing
there's
like that.
weightage, it is called weight. That is different. It's when you do survey, and to give you an example, and once I thought about it that we have democracy, so people cast their votes, but actually everybody's vote has same value. Whether somebody is a doctor or an engineer or a laborer or an illiterate person, when they cast their ballot, everybody is counted as one. But really speaking, what they should do, that if somebody is educated, his vote should have more value. Instead of 1, it should be equal to 100. And if somebody is illiterate, doesn't know anything about politics, let him have just 1 value.
0.
So that is called weight. So now there are only, say 10 people have cast ballots. It does not mean that the total will be 10. According to the weight you multiply. Suppose there are 5 people and their ballot has value of 10, so it will be 50 plus 5, 55. So this is called
Something
weight.
like that.
So where we went
Yeah.
in all different directions.
This is good stuff.
So now with this concept you try to understand what is mukti. So mukti basically is getting the soul out of the ignorance. So ignorance has 2 things, as I said. First, that there is a general ignorance which is always with us. It never leaves. It is beginningless and unchanging. And that is the ignorance about Lord. We don't have knowledge about the Lord. And therefore Bhagavatam says, Bhayam dvitiya abhinivesta shad ishad apetasya vipareyo smriti. So when we have that ignorance, and because this has no beginning, so we cannot blame anybody for that. And then there is a second type of ignorance specific ignorance, which means mistaking one thing for another. So that is thinking this body to be eternal, thinking this body is very clean when it is so dirty. If you have ever walked in India, in certain markets, they have meat shop and they have goat which they have slaughtered, and they remove the skin and they hang it in the shop. You can see it, and it is so horrible to look at it. I went to Agra, 1 week ago, and I had to pass through that area, and there are 2-3 shops one after another. My God, it's so horrible to look at it. You can vomit. So that is inside our body. That's what our body is inside. So I said that beauty is skin deep. So remove the skin, and then you see the ugly part. But everybody is trying to be beautiful. But what is the beauty in this body? You really try to see. It's very horrible. I mean, these trees, they are more beautiful, because even if you remove the skin, still they look beautiful. But you remove the skin of human beings. Any most beautiful Miss Universe or Mr. Universe, remove the skin and see. And then you would not like to see it without the skin.
But Satyanarayana, wouldn't that be what that sounds like to me is like it's people are attracted because they're not thinking, they're thinking of how they can enjoy.
But how can you enjoy this dirty stuff?
Because you concoct
That is
a
only
fantasy.
because of ignorance.
You can,
That is ignorance.
so that you can then enjoy
Because
it.
the body without skin and skin by itself, both are not beautiful. And if you put them together, how can that be beautiful?
Yeah.
The skin by itself is also not beautiful, and the body by itself without skin is not beautiful. And these two things together are considered as beautiful.
So that's the work of Maya.
That is Maya. That is ignorance. That is avidya. And then to think that this is eternal and clean and beautiful, and then to consider things which are miserable as happiness. So this is the work of Maya. So this is not absence of knowledge, but improper knowledge. This is confusion, misconception. This is what keeps on changing. The other one is stable. You just don't have it. Knowledge about the Supreme.
So you won't know how to use or when or how to use an adjective if you don't have knowledge.
And
Right.
adjective.
An adjective like something which describes something. I mean, if you say, oh, this is a beautiful, this fan smells sweet. It really has no aroma, but the fact is that you want to think it smells sweet, so you need like that kind of adjective in order for the object to look, see it as appealing. So, but in truth, this is not so wonderful. But you need to say, well, this is a sweet object. So then it's the adjective makes it. The adjective is that which describes.
Well, adjective
And
also has two purposes. One is describes, other is that it distinguishes. When you say this is a sweet fan, it signifies that it is different from the bitter fan. This is not a 2 rupee fan.
There can be question, from where comes the beauty, or is beauty existing at all? Because we're speaking about beauty.
That French philosophers can answer that. They have written a lot about beauty.
Yeah, I ask you.
So all this beauty business, it does not exist when you see it from the spiritual point of view.
But the Lord is beauty.
That is spiritual, that's why I said.
Yeah, that's me now. This I mean.
Yeah, so that beauty is, then you have to see whether you are speaking of the spiritual object or the material object, from which level. So in the material objects there is no absolute beauty. And then beauty, if you have to see, you can only see it from Lord's point of view.
It's
And
so spiritual.
then there is beauty in it. But if you are thinking it as an independently beautiful object, then that is an illusion. And because it's going to put you in more illusion, it is going to bind you and lead you to misery. Because it is based on a misconception.
So this phrase about the soul being embodied, many people say the soul is an embodiment of the human frame. That's illogical. That's not.
Well, you have to tell me what it means. In making a statement. When we say embodied soul, what we means is the soul which is conditioned by the body, which is mistaking a particular body as itself or belonging to itself. That's what we mean by embodied soul. So we will stop here. Think about mukti.
When you were saying that everything exists only a few moments in the mind and then goes to the chitta, does that correspond with the Buddhist philosophy? Or is it
No, Buddhist, I mean,
Kshanakavada?
Buddhist philosophy, it has also some similarity. Everything is not wrong in Buddhist philosophy. Only thing is that in Buddhist philosophy they don't accept 3 moments, they accept only one.
Yes.
And it is created and finished, created and finished. There is no existence. And that is a problematic situation.
I'd like to go back to the point of Jnana Vijnana. We've got 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, and through that we get the Jnana, and you described it as theoretical knowledge. What is the catalyst that turns it into Vijnana?
And that is bhakti. Bhakti is the Vijnana.
And it's also the catalyst.
Absolute knowledge is only that knowledge which is, let's say, an aspect of the internal potency.
Yes. So this is what Rupa Goswami has defined. He says that there is sadhana bhakti, then there is bhava bhakti, and then there is prema bhakti. So on this particular verse, there is commentary by Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And Jiva Goswami says that actually there is no need to make 3 divisions. If you remember his commentary, so just make sadhana bhakti and prema bhakti, which is sadhya. Why bring another thing? And then, of course, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur does not agree with Jiva Goswami. And he says that it is necessary. And I think it is necessary, of course. First of all, Rupa Goswami has made it like that. And Jiva Goswami has his point, he is trying to simplify it, to make it understand. But it is interesting from my own understanding why he made 3. Because it is only at Bhav Bhakti that you can call internal potency or knowledge, because there is no difference between internal potency and knowledge. This Satchit and Ananda, they are together. One cannot be separated from another. It is only at that time that it enters into the soul. Before that it is outside. And when it enters into the soul, that's why then it becomes Sthai Bhav. It is permanent. Now it cannot be taken away. And that is the time then soul is free now. And there is no question of it falling down. Although there is possibility of losing it. Bhavopya bhavam ayati Krishna preshta aparadhata. That if somebody commits a really great offense, then it can still lose it. But really speaking, it's only a possibility. It does not happen. Being in the material world, such possibility exists. But once the bhav comes, that person obviously, because then he is guided by that bhav, and there is no possibility of committing an offense like that. So, before that, whatever is happening outside. And therefore Lord Chaitanya says, Cheto darpan marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam. So he is talking about cleaning the heart. So it is very interesting that why these two things have been combined together. Because Cheta is still outside the soul. And why it has to be cleansed. But of course, we also have two types of siddhas, Kripa Siddha and Sadhan Siddha. In case of Kripa Siddha, there is no Cheta Darpana Marjana. It's just directly the energy is given to the soul and bas. But in Sadhan Siddha, which is the case with most people, including us, then we have to clean it. Clean, remove everything. And once it becomes clean, then the potency enters into the soul. So that's why 3 divisions were made. And from there onwards, then bhava manifests into prema automatically. Then it is not sadhana anymore. Because sadhana is something which we have to perform with our endeavor. And bhava means now it happens naturally. It has become your nature now. It is your swabhav, like your swarup. So that is actually swarupena vyavasthiti. That is the stage of mukti hitva anitha rupam swarupena vyavasthiti. And it becomes situated in the swarup. Because jiva swarup hai nitya Krishna Das. So when bhav is in the soul, then now it is going to act like that. And that is the time that ignorance is removed from the soul. So Jiva Goswami, now the question then can be raised philosophically that if ignorance was in the soul, then how it can be removed? Because then that means now something is being taken away from the soul, and soul is not undergoing any transformation. It is achintyayam, vikaryayam. So Jiva Goswami has answered it nicely. I don't find that answer anywhere else. He says that this absence is a special type of absence which is called pragabhav, pre-non-existence. That absence itself signifies that knowledge is going to appear here. That is the very meaning of that. It's like when you want to cook something, before that there is a pre-non-existence of that object you are going to cook. And when that object comes into existence, then it's not something that it is thrown away or removed. It's pragabhav, one type of bhav, which is accepted that it is instrumental. In fact, in Nyaya, they consider that as one of the cause behind something being produced. So, and this pragabhav is anadi. It has no beginning. But it has always an end. So there is also another type of bhav called absence, which has no beginning and no end. So if that was the type of absence existing in the soul, then we will never become liberated. There are 4 types of abhavas, 4 types of absences. So this is the one type where there is possibility of knowledge coming.
Oh, that's nice. Bhakti Sandhya, right? I remember it.
That seems to be the
Very
the
interesting.
perfect explanation
Yeah, otherwise,
that accounts for.
you try, so many people say so many things. I read Yoga Sutra and other philosophers. There is no proper answer. This is the only thing which answers it so nicely.
It seems to actually define the very nature of Tatastha Shakti.
Yes.
Because how else can you explain? If that absence is not there, how can the soul become bewildered by Maya? And if it's not of the specific type that, knowledge will come, then how can it ever be influenced by the internal potency?
Nothing would influence it if it was Atyanta Bhav.
Mm-hmm.
You just spoke about the above Shakti enters, right? But it's always described that this is a gradual process by cleansing of the heart gradually. You get more and more. How does it actually happen?
How does it happen?
Well, there's two descriptions. I'm now hearing the second description. I've always heard first that it's a gradual process as the heart becomes purified. Then,
I also explained same way. That heart becomes purified. Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha Tata Bhajan Kriya Anartha Nivritti Sat and Ruchi and Asakti and Bhav. So at the stage of Bhav it enters into the soul. And then it is from soul that it is manifesting into the senses. Now it is coming through the chitta. It is influencing the chitta, and from there it is manifesting into the mind and into the senses. And it will come from the soul. And then he becomes disassociated. So that is the meaning of Jivan Mukta or a Siddha Purusha.
Right, it's not coming from the chitta and then going through this mind and senses anymore. It's coming from within the soul itself.
Then now that is the soul's nature.
So that's at
So
the
now the
stage
soul
of
is
Bhav.
awake.
Yes.
Before that it is like sleeping.
Sleeping.
Now he wakes up.
That's at the stage of Bhav.
Yeah.
Yes. And then at prem you can't take it anymore.
So therefore when you see the characteristics of Bhav, Nam, Gane, Ruchi, Sada and all these things, Avyarth, Avyarth, Kalatvam, doesn't waste time and all this, because now it is naturally coming from these characteristics, they are bound to manifest. And then prema follows automatically.
This reference to the Bhagavatam from which place is this taken?
Second chapter. And Suta Goswami starts answering the 6 questions. Then in the second chapter itself it is defined.
So this process that you've just described, when that happens, then one can be in ecstasy.
You can be in anything then. Okay.
Yeah. Lot of new stuff. All are new stuff. You need this kind. I think knowledge is prerequisite to do something. Always it should. Education must be given priority. Otherwise, like blind leading blind. It's all a mess.